Tyler Hoover here of Hoovy's Garage, filling in for Steve Bignante on his YouTube channel as he continues to have his health struggles, doing my own version of junkyard crawls like he would, except he has more knowledge in his pinky than I have in my entire body, so I'm doing my best. This is my last video filling in for Steve Bignante, and the best thing you can do is watching these videos along with a few other of his older videos, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. That way when he comes back to doing YouTube for us again, he can pick up right where he left off without losing any momentum, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm looking up at this beautiful Mercedes 123 Diesel. Now this is the 123 Series chassis Mercedes Diesel, the car known to go 1,000,000 miles if properly taken care of, and I've owned many of these cars. I know them backwards and forwards, so this might be my best junkyard dive yet, which is a pretty low bar to set. Still not nearly as good as Steve's, but it's pretty easy to see why this one was taken off the road. There's a lot of rust on this thing, but these cars are pretty legendary. Now the 123 Mercedes, in my opinion, is what mainstream Mercedes into the United States buying culture, and that's because of a fuel crisis. The oil embargo has fuel prices sky high, and so people didn't want big V8 GM or big 3 vehicles with horrible fuel economy, but they still wanted something luxurious and nice. Enter the Mercedes Diesel. This was a mid-size car that offered full-size comfort and, well, decent speed too with the turbo, which this one doesn't have, with more manageable fuel economy. You could get mid-20s with these 5-cylinder diesels. So people would buy these instead of regular American cars, and then they noticed how much better the build quality was, how much better they lasted, and well, ever since, people kept buying German vehicles, Mercedes like this, and the big 3, Lincoln, Cadillac, continued to lose market share to where today people are buying more imports than American cars when it comes to luxury. These cars debuted in the United States in the 1977 model year, and they were sold until 1985 when they were replaced with the 124, and they are very simple vehicles with a few quirks, but still very much a mechanical machine. Very little electronics, and the way they figured out how to get things working without electronics is pretty interesting. So with that, let's start the tour. Now, I did forget to mention in my previous 4 intros that I had to reshoot because of camera issues. I forgot to thank Euro Asian Auto Inc. here in Wichita, Kansas for letting me film back here to do Steve style videos. They have a massive inventory of European and import cars for a lot of parts, including this 123 Mercedes right here, which is sitting above an Infiniti G35, I believe, which gives us a unique viewpoint on this car and to sort of see where they rust. I imagine that's what's taken this car off the road, is lots and lots of rust that somebody did try to repair here and there over the years. You can see the fiberglass repair, and being stacked up high gives us a unique view of the undercarriage, something we don't normally see in the junkyard, starting with the independent rear suspension here. These had axle boot failures left and right, and you can see these old ones are starting to split, maybe not leaking fluid yet, but getting pretty darn close. But independent rear suspension, 4-wheel disc brakes, you can see, and they called these wheels bunt wheels. Of course, not from Mercedes. That was the nickname for these because they looked like a bunt cake mold. They had them in 14-inch. There are some much rarer 15-inch bunt wheels that were quite a bit more valuable until they started reproducing them, but this one, the regular old 14-inchers, you can see the rear quarter here getting eaten away as well, along with the rocker panels. And these holes right here were for the jack points. Mercedes had their own special jack that sort of went in here, and you could jack up the car, change a tire that way. It wasn't hard to find a jack point. But when they do start rusting like this, you sure don't want to start jacking from those areas. Otherwise, you can use this post right here, sort of the frame, but that one's rusted pretty badly as well. More of the bunt wheels. And if you look up here, you see the US mandates influencing the design of this car. In Europe, they would have had squared off headlights and much slimmer, more elegant looking bumpers. But in the US, they were a little behind on the times, so they mandated sealed beam headlights. That's why you had to have these round headlights in Mercedes and other German cars of this era, even though modern headlights were so much better. US was just a bit behind on regulations. Same with bumper regulations. They wanted to have some sort of impact resistance for pedestrians and minor accidents, so they had these bumper shocks right here. That was mandated by the US government, so Mercedes had to add them. So imagine having to redesign a car in the 70s, something pointing towards the future, but still having to work with some really, really old US regulations that didn't make any sense. It worked on this car. It didn't work as much with, say, Mercedes SLs, where they got these big park bench looking bumpers, and some other ones didn't look as classy. On these, it integrated pretty darn well. Now you look under here, and we have the bottom of the 617 Series Diesel engine. And this one is not a turbo, and being a sedan, it means it is a 1981 or older. I don't know exactly what year yet. I'll look, of course, inside the door here in a little bit, but I'm going to try and determine it on my own before. So let's go up. I don't think this hood is going to be anything somebody's going to want. So we can go up and look at the top of the 5-cylinder. You can see this is one of the headlight doors. Very, very broken on this, but it would have gone over the dual headlights to make it a little bit more of a smoother, natural looking finish. So you have the thermostat housing right here and the water pump, and then the Bosch mechanical, very robust fuel injection system. Here is the mechanical fuel injection here. You can see each one going to each cylinder, and then you have the overflow return lines going, these ones right here. And all of this was really controlled by vacuums. So if you wanted to shut off the car, you had to be dependent on a series of vacuum lines right here that control everything from transmission shifts to the cruise control to everything to work. That's part of the vacuum system right here. And it would basically shut off the vehicle by pushing this rod in. But a lot of times it would fail, which is what this stop button is right here. If you needed to shut down your diesel, if that wasn't working, you'd have to pop the hood and push this in, and it would pull out this rod to shut off the fuel. So a very complicated system to replace electronics, which is very, very slim to none here. A few stuff like a glow plug relay, stuff for the tachometer, one fuse box back here, but not very much. Even the climate control isn't necessarily electronic, and I can see it does have this very early version of automatic climate control right here. They called it the servo system, AC2, and all these vacuum lines, they went into the dash to change the pods, and this controlled the temperature, and it even had coolant flowing through it because there was a valve in here for heat to turn the heat on and off. So this is all plastic. It would break and leak fluid out. Obviously, you lose coolant, you can overheat and be on the side of the road. So it was a much maligned, not very well loved system, but an early attempt at a very complicated automatic climate control system where you set the temperature at whatever you want, and then it just automatically goes back and forth, modulates on its own. That makes this car not a 1981, but a 1980 or older, and you can see regular old intake and exhaust, no turbo. If this was a turbo diesel, which came out in 1982 for the sedans, 1981 with the wagons, and in 1980 if you had a 300 SD or 79, I believe, there would have been a turbo living right down there. And it's a pretty safe bet that that engine would start up and run with very minimal effort. That's why these cars have such legendary reputations when it comes to longevity and reliability. This one looks like it just rusted in peace. That is why it is here. So let's go inside. We'll climb up again. Once again, I don't think this door panel is going to be something anybody wants, but we can go inside. And you can see the very elegant, luxurious interior that people really loved. Now this one looks like it was optioned with leather. You had two options. You had MB Tex, which was a vinyl that simulated leather, and then you had actual leather interior. The MB Tex was really tough stuff, but did a good job of giving a nice feel and finish. It didn't feel like Naugahyde or vinyl where your skin would stick to the seats. But this one had a lovely blue leather interior. We have the door panels here, which are vinyl, but in good shape. You can see these would clean up and be absolutely perfect with minimal effort. But the driver's seat, very much gone on this one. We have a few window regulators hanging out. But then you see the early 123 center console and that AC2 climate control system. So let's look at the date code. I would say this one was built in the late 70s. And yeah, it is 10 of 79. So chances are this is a 1980 model year car. built in 79. And look at the mileage on this thing, 368,000 miles before it was retired to the junkyard. A very long life for any car, but in a 123, that's just getting started. Once again, the rust is probably what took this out. But the dashboard vinyl cracking like crazy as well. Sunroof optioned on this one. But otherwise, there weren't a lot of options with these cars. They came fairly well equipped. The Becker Grand Prix stereo replaced with this tape deck here. You would have had the sunroof control here, the antenna up and down, the rear dome, and this is the rear defroster. It kind of looks like the glow plug symbol, but it's not. That would have been for the rear defroster. The glow plug symbol right here is what you would wait to turn off when you turn the key. You would wait for the glow plugs to fully warm up, that would switch off, and you could start the car. No tachometer in this one either, just the clock. Didn't really need it, I guess, in 1980 with a non-turbo car with, you know, around 100 horsepower, about 120 with the turbos. But it looks like this car is getting used for a lot of small parts like window regulators, little things here and there like the radiator, but a lot of people, they want the turbos, so that's the one that they look for parts. That's probably why the engine is still in this thing, the transmission. People want the turbo cars, and that's why they put all the effort into fixing them up, and that's why the drivetrain more or less is intact here. So let's see anything in the trunk to look at. Oh, I can look through the taillight here. Not much in the trunk as well. You can see the hole there going into the cabin. That would have been for a first aid kit. Every car came with a first aid kit in the rear shelf. Also gave you a little emergency access to the trunk, say if it got stuck and you couldn't get in. But this one still even has the key hanging out back there. So wonderful little car. I'm a big fan of these. Probably owned 20 or more in my motoring life, and this one, well, much too far gone to save, so may it rest in peace. Now please like this video and watch a few more of Steve's old videos before you go. It's been very fun filling in for him. Hopefully you liked it, and we see Steve back on here real soon. Thank you so much for watching.